Hi there, welcome to Falling Up Radio. I'm Michael Harris. I'm really excited to be here. If you're looking for really frank, raw, and edgy conversations, you're in for a treat today. Actually, we are in for a frank today, so we'll talk more about that in a moment. First, I want to mention, depending upon where you're listening, you may be listening on the website and watching the video, but you may be on Stitcher or iTunes or one of the other platforms. So I want to let you know, if you go to the website, sorry to block you there, Frank,
no problem.
And you get this book, Falling Down, Getting Up. This book was #1 in recovery, stress, and yoga. You can get a free copy on the website, again, fallingupradio.com. I want to get started, though, right away, having a conversation with Frank. But first, I've got to tell you about this guy. I don't remember exactly when we met Frank, maybe about 5 years ago. But I want to tell you, Frank, and I've made all my notes right here and everything. Frank is on a mission to raise consciousness in the world in really a fun, lighthearted, and quirky way. And you'll see all about that in a minute. He did a remake. I won't get into it too much right now, but maybe we can chat a little bit about it, of Charlie Chaplin's famous inspiration speech. And he had 400,000 views already. And I want to read something that he has on his website. I'm just going to read it word for word. And it says, "Our job is to simply embrace who we truly are and let go of the details. The entire universe conspires to pollinate a single flower. We'll be just fine." Frank, pronounce your last name.
Gjata.
Gjata.
Yes.
Okay, I say Gjata, Gjata.
Tomato.
Yeah. So welcome to Falling Up Radio.
Thank you.
I want to jump right in, especially that last statement.
Okay.
What is it about consciousness or about raising consciousness that has you going in life today?
Well, in that quote, I think it says, there's different variations, but one of the biggest aspects of it, it says, including myself.
Ah, yeah.
So that is why. So really, and I think it's true for all of us, meaning if we're able to make a shift, something that's not working in our lives, I'm sure you can speak to this,
yeah.
That it also impacts the whole, impacts the collective. So focusing on myself, really, and then it's just an outcropping to share what I've learned, what my experience is, and then the tools that have come along the way that I've created to support others as well as myself.
That's great. One of the things that I know about you is you're really into the words that we say and how we say it. And I know Dr. Amato has influenced you too. And if you guys don't know who Dr. Amato is, he's all about water. Maybe you can mention a little bit about him and maybe some inspiration that maybe came through that as well.
Well, I think that definitely with Conscious Inc., with the power of our thoughts. Trying to think, there was a few different people that culminated to create Conscious Inc., which Conscious Inc. is really empowering temporary tattoos to support ourselves with whatever we're focusing on in our lives. So if I'm working on presence, it says right there, be present. Because it's easy to, be conscious when we're, in the middle of reading, a book, an inspirational book, right? Or we're just leaving a conference and we're wide open and we can remember. But then you step out on the curb in the real world, somebody almost runs you over and you're thrown off. So the idea was to catch people when they're in their, when they subconsciously are tuned out, when they're in their patterns, when they're in, their old ways of believing and thinking, right? So it's really to catch them in that moment so they, and there's a spark to make a shift.
Well, I mean, I've heard it said too that we have something like 70,000 thoughts a day. And I've also heard the question, if that was a friend of yours that had all those thoughts in their head and they were saying those things, would you be a friend with that person because the thoughts in our heads are so messed up. So what I'm hearing you saying that if we shift what we're talking about, it can change that.
Well, it's a great point. You're bringing up another good point. So I'm going to go on maybe another tangent with the 70,000 thoughts. So one of the things that I've learned, or that I find powerful, is, I mean, we can spend all day monitoring our thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean, right? 70,000. So what kind of life is that, and how effective is it? So one thing that with Mississippi, for instance, and I'll get into that, we can talk about it, but really kind of an aspect of it is based on Einstein's quote: "A problem can't be solved in the same state of consciousness that it was created."
Yeah.
So what I find is it's not so much, we're not getting to the root of the problem, if you will. If you take Einstein's quote there, it's actually our state of consciousness, our state of being, that will direct us off course. So we need to address that, because when we're stuck, when we're stressed, when we're under anxiety, when we're under the influence of whatever, we're not in a place to make those shifts. So really the broad stroke move, and this is what I speak about in Mississippi, is to shift our consciousness. Because once we do that, what happens? Oh, you have an idea of an inspiration, and you're in a place that you can actually see solutions. In a place that you're stressed, you're cut off. I mean, as we know, when you're under stress, when you're in fight or flight, you have very little access to your mental acuity.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
It's cut off.
Yeah.
So what do? A lot of times we're stuck. So then we try harder, and we keep on trying, and we get nowhere. So taking Einstein's quote there, if we actually, that's why things like even just taking a break from that and going out and taking a walk, taking a breath, if you notice already, I've taken like 5 breaths with these great questions, we can already start the process. So it's relatively easy. And here's the other thing, there's another benefit by that, is that's a much more fun process than it is to be always monitoring ourselves and being hard. Oh, I did it again. That's not creating a great state of being.
Right. So it's like even letting go of the judgment that we have of our thoughts is what I'm hearing you say.
Well,
right?
yeah. And letting go of the judgment of the thoughts, and even trying, like I said, to me, it's much more arduous and not effective of focusing on the minutia. There's a reason where are those thoughts coming from? So getting to the roots of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I know you practice yoga, and I've practiced yoga for a long time, and I also teach it.
Yes.
And one of the things that I find, the structure, the posture, and all that is good and important, but it's really meaningless in many different ways because of our consciousness of our breath. If we learn within our practice to breathe calmly and allow the thoughts to go through without judgment and without holding on to the physical sensations we may feel as a part of the structure, we've come a long ways. And I had, my primary teacher once told me, don't worry about it, forget about it, just do the yoga. And that was my biggest yoga lesson I've ever had, was that right there. It wasn't how to perform a better triangle.
Yes.
It was like letting go of that mind that was holding me back.
Yes. And I think that's why yoga is such a great teacher for us. And, with teachers always are reflecting upon what you just said. I also think what's great with yoga is, because you're in a pose and you're challenged, right? Yeah. So what are you going to do with that challenge? You can curse the challenge. Why am I, and go. Yeah. Or you can learn to breathe,
right.
and really get in tune with, oh, let me check that out. Is it really, can I move through it? Is it in my head? So we learn this practice. And then when we're out in traffic or whatever, we can utilize those skills.
Right. And, I even, speaking about traffic, it's interesting because it's easy to, I don't know if you've ever done this, Frank, but I've done it before where I flipped somebody off in traffic years ago, and it wasn't a very good thing, right?
Yeah.
They actually started chasing me.
Yeah.
And, this was in Portland on the Banfield Freeway probably 30 years ago. I haven't done it since, but he'd cut me off and he chased me, and I drove up to a police department and went in and all this stuff. Now, what I do when I feel frustrated out there, or somebody's like cutting in, or they're like trying to get in traffic, or they're going really fast. I'm thinking, I wonder what's going on. Maybe they need to get to the hospital. Maybe they have a child. Maybe they had something that was struggling with them that day. So rather than cursing them, I'm like moving out of the way, so to speak, and just allowing it to be what it is.
Yeah.
Now, I can't say I do that 100% of the time.
Right.
But that's where I try to move towards.
Well, that's a great, so awareness, right? So there could be you can do the same thing with self-awareness. It's like, I'm noticing if I'm getting stressed in that. And so what can I learn in this moment?
Yeah.
So you're right. So that's another tool, right?
Yeah.
And so awareness of others and being, okay, well, wait a minute. How many times what if I was driving to the hospital and, in a hurry and cutting somebody off? So having that understanding of other people, what can I learn about this moment? Taking that moment like you would in a yoga pose.
Yeah.
This is a challenging moment.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what have I found to be effective for, what I could get, lose it and flip somebody off and then be chased and go to the police station. That's one option.
Yeah.
Or, we learn that, well, wait a minute, what would be really most, actually, I was going to say beneficial, but what I find is what's really the most loving situation, position that I can have in this moment, self and other. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, one of these things, well, before I get to this, I want to ask you, in life, we all get challenged by something. We all hit bottom, so to speak, for some reason, whether it could be relationship, it could be money, it could be addictions, it could be other health issues, it could be anything.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure you're not immune to that either. So what are you willing to maybe share with the listeners today on maybe something where you hit bottom that really affected you at the time?
Yeah.
That you're willing to reveal?
Sure. I absolutely. Just reminds me though because a lot of people talk about suffering is the catalyst for change, transformation.
Right.
However, and I'm going to answer your question, what I find is that suffering is simply a really convincing ingredient. The suffering itself doesn't make you transform. It just really is convincing. Like, I don't want any more of this.
Right.
You know what I mean? I just want to make that distinction. Because a lot of people say, well, you can't have growth without suffering. I disagree.
So I disagree too.
Okay, good. Yeah. So we can come back to that. But for me, what was a big shift was really being aware. I was more of living in a persona in some aspects of my life. And that would be mostly in relationship with another and myself. So that was leading toward, this was probably 16, 17 years ago, that led to a divorce. So that was really challenging because a lot of parts of my life were going really well. So I was in a field that I enjoyed being. A lot of my life was going well because I was really more of an authenticity and essence in that work. In the relationship world, I was still ignorant of that and living in a facade, if you will, a persona that I say is what you learn to be. How do you adapt to challenges? And you develop personas for survival. So I had mine. And so finally, if you're lucky, then you face it.
So you had an opportunity to
I
face
did. I had plenty of time to not facing it and going to, well, this doesn't feel good. So back to the suffering, right? Yeah. And you got to a point where I had to make a choice. I go, either I face this now, or it could be literally another 10 years that I might, or maybe never. Yeah.
So what did you do to move through that?
Oh, that's when it's like the crumbling, right? The falling down. It's like, oh man, that was challenging. So what did I do to move through it? It was first just, like I said, it was a step. And this, just, okay, let me, what is really going? So being authentic, being truthful, like, wow, I'm there's a part of my life that's not working. Yeah. So it started with that. And then what it led me to is, well, let me learn about that. What does that mean? And so I started reading more. I was, who am I resonating with? So again, this is a big lesson too, was just following naturally what I was drawn to. So I came across a number of great authors. I'll name a couple because then I started studying with them, which was Doctors Gay and Katie Hendricks. Relationship experts, self-help, gurus, best-selling authors, them.
Yes, I know them quite well.
Yeah. Been on Oprah, the whole thing. So anyways, one of those things, once you're willing and you're taking a step toward authenticity, which is how the universe works, well, now you've got the universe at your back.
Yeah.
So I'm reading Conscious Living, Conscious Loving or something, going, wow, this stuff is good. And I finish it and I look at the back. Where are these guys? These guys, what do you know? They're in Ventura, California. I was in Manhattan Beach at the time. And I'm like, wow, let me check them out.
Yeah.
So I check them out on the internet. Hey, they've got workshops and conferences. Hey, there's one this weekend. Hey, I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm going.
Yeah.
So literally that was like Thursday. And so, there you go with synchronicity starting to happen. Again, once you get more authentic, that's a way the universe works with you through synchronicity. So literally within 48 hours of me discovering them, enjoying them, I'm at a workshop, then more of the unfoldment, unraveling happens.
Right. And then you really, if I remember now that you mention it, you really took that to a next level.
I did.
And really studied with them at a deeper level and became a teacher or instructor or leader.
A coach. Yeah. Coach. So exactly. And then that's the path, right? So willing to face it, learning, following, loving the work. And so then I was a freelance writer at the time. And I was like, wow, this stuff is awesome. And I wasn't setting out to be, a coach or whatever, but I was enjoying it so much. I had a knack for it. So then I started offering coaching. And so it kind of changed from the freelance writing to coaching. And then then it happened, the combination of the two.
Yeah. And so you really, what were you doing when you say you were coaching? Were you doing one-on-one coaching? Were you doing group coaching? Were you doing workshops? What were you doing?
Primarily, so it's writing as well, but primarily one-on-one coaching.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was all down in Southern California.
It was, but as you know, with Skype and phone calls everywhere. I was loving that. And then it led me to doing other stuff in the same field. So as soon as the shift was made back then, this was really where my life wanted to go. And I had to have my own experience, arguably, I guess. And so then what happens, I'm sure with you too, all your experiences come together to provide and create a unique position, if you will. You're a unique person.
Yeah.
So nobody can deliver this podcast like you. Nobody can, create exactly like I can, and nobody can do what, all your aspects.
Yeah. We all have a different piece.
Yes.
Yeah. So what brought you from being the writer, doing the coaching, to where you are now? Were you speaking along the way and doing some public speaking?
Just through my coaching, whether there were talks or some workshop type things. Then, like I said, these skills were gained as I was coaching. I was loving that, and led me to writing, and then also my background in I also have a background in film and advertising. I was a writer, creative director, so I created commercials. And so back to the skills of I was able to learn to communicate in a very quick way.
Yeah.
Through sometimes just a word, sometimes just a visual, an image. People who are in advertising out there, they get that. And so that helped me, really distill down the essence of what I want to communicate in different ways, and in my writing. But it also, the creativity of that resides within me, started focusing on this, how to support people with making shifts in their lives.
Sure. And I know I'm going to mention this now. That seems a pretty good place. You gave me one of these a few years ago, and I still have it. But I love this hat, badass manifester. You know, and I love that. So where did that come about? How did that pop up?
To be honest, I don't recall, that term, being a badass, something or another. And then since we're talking about manifestation tattoos is what they're called, it just became a natural, position on that.
Yeah. So I want to go back to that first line I read again. It says, Frank is on a mission to raise consciousness around the world in a fun, lighthearted, and sometimes even quirky way. So you've taken that and you've used your skills as a writer, relationship coach, etc., and created this way of this badass manifestation of helping other people become aware of what they're saying. And you're doing it like here's an example. This thing is called Empower. This is conscious sync. And if you can see right there, or is it right there? One of the two is, it says
courage and belief.
Courage and belief. But these are little tattoos that you've created that are temporary that people can use. Mm-hmm. Again, maybe when they're driving down the street ready to flip somebody off, and then they go, oh, believe, empower, or whatever it is.
Breathe,
So how did you take the leap into conscious ink about what you're doing and how that got created?
That's a good question. Again, when you're in the flow, right? I'm sure you can speak to this. When you're in the flow, and back to Einstein's thing, when you're in the flow, so stuff comes to you, to you, to me, to you. Directly. So there's less work. You hear about people that talk about what, and I'm sure you've had experience with this, and I have, where you wake up and it's like, what's going to happen today? Like you literally are not having to do anything. It sounds weird, but you get it. You end up doing things, but you're not having to like figure it out and like, well, I got to make that happen. I got to make that happen or whatever.
Well, let me ask you, I don't know if this happens to you, but oftentimes when I wake up in the morning, I wake up and I meditate for an hour, but I have not necessarily even after meditation, oftentimes before, might be 4:35, 5:30 in the morning, I have this inspiration that comes to me. Mm-hmm. And I have a journal next to my bed, so I often write these little notes down. But it's like connecting with whatever it is that's trying to speak through us.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. And what happens is, so that's always coming through. I'm sure your listeners know this. Mm-hmm. Yet we are blocking that. Right. For whatever, we're stuck again in fight or flight. We're in our traumas. We're in our old ways of thinking or whatever. So that's blocking what's coming 24/7, by the way. So this is the natural way, from my experience, of how it works. So it's learning back to, again, what keeps you in a place of receptivity, of being able to listen, and sometimes that's why meditation is so powerful, right? Because you are literally just something what we need, just quieting our mind and ourselves, and then we can hear the messages that are coming through.
And I think that's why I get it oftentimes in the morning, and maybe other people too, is because I haven't been driving around all day. I'm not influenced by traffic. I just wake up and I'm clear-minded so I can hear what's there.
For sure.
And other than that, it gets all covered up.
That's right.
So,
but see, that's wise. And so for everybody, and it could be for somebody, it's a nature walk, meditation, yoga, but it can be anything, playing music, listening to music, whatever it is for you. So this is where you start, really researching yourself and getting honest with what puts you in a place of receptivity. When can you relax? When are you in your natural state? And what throws you off? So, when you understand that, when you understand the mechanism and what choices you're making and where they lead to, then you can catch yourself sooner when you're in a situation where, it's not going to work.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. I want to mention this, but then I kind of want to show off a couple of things here too. But I was on a walk this morning. We live in a beautiful area of the country, and we have this great river that we can walk by. And, you know, we've all been out there walking, hiking, doing all this other stuff. And I was out there this morning and I looked up at this cliff. It was maybe 40, 50 feet high. And there was this big tree growing out of the rocks up there. And, you know, how many times have I seen a tree growing out of a rock? A gazillion million times. And, you know, kind of thinking, oh, wow, isn't this cool? But what I saw today was different than what I'd seen before. And I was thinking somehow, you know, there's all the rocks up there. Somehow a seed got between two rocks, a rock and a hard place, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And somehow made it down to the soil and started growing roots. And then it grew 40 feet tall, or however tall the actual tree was. And it was kind of like king of the mountain, king of the cliff. And, you know, it started out with nothing, a little tiny seed.
Yes.
Somehow grew out of that rocky terrain right there. And it's just like, wow, isn't that like life? Sometimes we get into these rocks in a hard spot.
Yeah.
I've been there, you've been there, we've all been there.
Yeah.
But we can still grow and be the king of the mountain,
That's a
so
great,
to speak.
No, that's that's a really great reminder. And I think it's hard to hear that or take it in when you're in between the rock and the hard place, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I think, you know, just planting that seed that you just shared of like, I can get through this.
Yeah.
You know, and look at that tree that made it through. I've been through, you know, so anybody who's having a hard time, you know, just to plant that seed, like as challenging as it may be right now, I can get through this, and I can not only get through it, but I can actually thrive, as pointed out by this tree.
Well, I mean, think how many seeds probably got scattered all over those rocks that didn't make it, but that one did. It didn't give up. Whatever the powers of the universe are out there, that seed didn't give up. It kept finding a way to like grow. I mean, it's just
innately.
Innately. So I want to get back to like empowerment and badass manifester and what you're doing now, because I mean, it's really fascinating to me that you've taken this idea and concept and you're really spreading it rapidly. And I think you're in like 1,000 locations now or something like that, mostly in the United States or all over the world.
Mostly the US, but in Canada, Australia, the UK. So we're actually starting to expand internationally, which is super exciting. So
tell me a little bit and tell the listeners a little bit again about this idea of the words and the empowerment on the arms and what got you going, and how in the world have you grown so fast? Because you haven't been in business that long.
Well, that's like the old overnight 10-year success.
Right.
Because it's actually been 10 years, I think, since pretty close 9 years since back to the seed of this idea.
Yeah.
So back then, 9 years ago, and let's see if I'm on another tangent, was I didn't know. So this idea came about, and it came about organically. I'll give a shout out to my daughter, who was probably like 6 at that time or something, coming back from a party where they give the little goodie bags now, and inside was cool temporary tattoos, much better than the ones that I remember from Cracker Jack boxes, right?
I remember those.
Yeah. So again, what was already swirling in my head, I was working on different things and all focused on supporting myself and others to wake up out of a moment that we're stuck. That's really, it's about, because when our natural state, it's about getting ourselves back in a natural state. So it's about reminding us who we are. That's a big part of the thing. But anyway, so I was already in this space thinking of ways to do this in a unique way to arrest people. I had I was one of the first text messaging services. This was over 12 years ago, that I would send out a text message at a random time. So people are caught off guard again, you know? So that was
So when you say text message, you like subscribers?
So this was a time we had to create, this is before like you can do everything now with apps, but in 2000, I want to say 7 or something, 2000. So that's like 12 years ago or 13. We had to build, because I'm not a tech guy, so I had somebody create this. It was kind of rudimentary, but it worked. So we had to do a lot of stuff manually, but basically I'd write a custom message every day short, 140 characters or less, and send it out at a random time to get people, again, if nothing else, just to have a breath. I would also be focusing on invoking humor into the message. So it was really a task to get all these things, something of a topic with a recommendation and in 140 characters, and also invoking humor.
Yeah.
Because I knew, if nothing else, just a break, and then if there was a bit of a laughter, so back to the idea, it can shift their state of being.
Yeah.
So that's what started. That was one of the first things that I did. It was called My Naked Guru. Right now it's down, actually.
My Naked Guru?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great name.
Yeah. It says something on the website. It says Uncovering Humans since 2007.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of fun things to play with. And so that was one way. That was the first way. And then Eve, my daughter, came home, and I see a temporary tattoo. Cool. Just messing around, put a paisley heart on my ankle. It's like, hey, that looks pretty real. Looks pretty good. And then I totally forgot about it. Yoga class, 5 days later or something, I'm doing down dog. I'm like, hey, there's that paisley heart. It looked pretty cool. Yeah. And it lasted. So boom, idea came. Oh man, wouldn't it be great to have words, quotes, things that we resonate with literally on our bodies. At times, just like I was reminded about that, and like took me out of the moment. Right. And so there was the idea of Conscious Ink. And then this is really creating an entire new market for temporary. Back then there was just Halloween tattoos. There was just
Cracker Jacks.
There was would people, and these were focused on adults. We have some for kids now, but initially was, would an adult wear a temporary tattoo back in this is before other temporary like the cool, festival tattoos and other cool kids tattoos they have now. So it took a while and how much was I going to invest? Like, I don't know if adults would be willing to wear these. Yeah. So anyway, one thing led to another, slowly. And then about 5 years ago, when I moved back to Bend, I decided, hey, people are into it. And so that's been about 5 years of full-time focus. Yeah. And so that's taken a lot of work. And it's.
Let me ask you, I didn't think about it till right now. Do you have, like maybe even Empower, do you have a single Empower tattoo that you can, or do you have something up there you can grab?
Well, you can grab, we have over 450.
Well, just grab one and we'll put it on my arm and we'll show people what it looks like.
Well, we will. So how about be present?
Be present, sure.
I mean, you can't.
Okay.
You can't.
So let's do this. Here's my arm.
Now,
but let's see.
Do you have lotion on?
No, I don't have lotion.
Okay. Just something for, so one of the things, that's why, pardon me, we include a alcohol prep pad because you want your skin clean and dry.
Well, I'm clean and dry.
Perfect.
Okay.
So Bikram is actually, it's challenging because I used to wear them in Bikram, and they will make it through as long as you're not sweating and rubbing. So anyway, so just something to keep in mind. So we don't probably.
Is this going to hurt?
It will not hurt. But
are you going to use needles?
It may remind you.
Do I have to come back?
You'll have to come back every week to get a new.
So you get a new one.
I'm going to get some water.
Okay. Don't go away. This is kind of really exciting what he's going to do. If you can see this that I'm holding right here, it says be present. And I don't know, do you think we should put it this way or do you think we should put it this way?
Let me see.
Maybe, but.
I would say since it's kind of, let me see. Let's go ahead and bring it down this way. Okay. So you got the little transparent cover, and I think we'll just put it this way.
Sure, whatever way you decide.
So it's sticky. So you want to kind of know where you're going to place it.
Just right there.
Perfect. Yeah. So once you get it, so you don't want to move it. Then you grab your wet paper towel or sponge or whatever. It's going to be cold because it came out of the cooler.
So that.
Hopefully it's not too cold, but so you're just going to soak it for
Well, I do Wim Hof stuff. I like cold, so
Okay,
I'll
you'll be
hop in the river, hop in the cold shower.
Man.
Yeah, give it to me. I go from the hot to the cold. The hot yoga.
Oh man.
105 to the cold. Yeah.
So about 30 seconds. You want to make sure it's soaked thoroughly. The back is thoroughly. I'm probably being extra cautious here. Then you remove.
Well, it's because we're on TV.
We're on TV. We don't mess it up. And then you just want to slowly, just to make sure it's there. Voila.
Voila. Can you see it? Now I'm going to be reminded. How long will this stay on? Just normal?
So we say 2 to 5 days.
2 to 5 days.
And depending on, we have people that say much longer, but we don't say that. It depends on people's skin, what you end up doing. And you're totally good, because most people think hey, I can't touch it or whatever. It's totally ready to go. It tends to be a little shiny in the first couple hours. Shine goes down. You'll be surprised how real. That's the other fun thing that happened with this. I didn't realize. With words, we pick colors that are really tattoo-like. And with words, they look really real. So they're not, when they have the big colorful butterflies, they look kind of fake. But this.
So, okay, everybody, I'm going to be present now, at least for the next couple of days.
You can go back in another podcast in a week or so. You can let people know if it got you one time.
If it got me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with this, can we walk around your little shop here a little bit and kind of show off a little bit more? Again, this is kind of fun. I've only done this one other time in a shop, but it's nice. I'm going to, I brought my computer. We can just walk around.
That's great.
So let's maybe, how are we going to do this, Frank?
Just, I'll kind of leave it. So as I mentioned, we have over 450, maybe 500 different messages. We kind of have them, lighting might be bad.
Yeah, let's go this way.
Okay, that's better. And so we have different categories on the website at consciousinc.com. You'll see, so if someone is going through some kind of healing, we have tattoos specifically for also different types of diseases.
Really?
Yes. And in fact, it might be worth mentioning. So I worked with an amazing healing shaman, and we tested every word and every color. Yeah, please. And this is why, so this is really bizarre. So every word, whether it's going to be in or of or whatever, was tested by this healing shaman, and also every color. So in this, you'll see, it's why is it this kind of forest green and a kind of fuchsia? And it's kind of bizarre, because most of our tattoos are typical tattoo color. However, this is what was downloaded from what colors would be most potent for healing.
Wow.
Generally, great. And then also specifically for different ailments.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I did that even with my book. Jack Canfield and I did some color testing with it.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. What is the response that people have with it?
I want to see one other one just so you can see how, this one is, I think, was also kind of a fuchsia-y color. But so for healing, there's some that's extra powerful stuff. Actually, I have a healing pack right here. So they can go, these, for instance, I live in joy and unity. I am alive. I believe this was more specifically focused for depression. And you'll see, you can go on the website and you'll see the different kind of what these antidotes are for.
Yeah. That's really cool. And just look at this, everybody. Look at all these different choices. So this is a little shop where we live, but you're in 1,000+ locations.
Yeah,
you're online.
People can find out if there's a store, a retailer near them.
Well, let's walk around a little bit because you got more. Oh, look at this one. I like this one, Frank. The Pregnant Goddess.
Yeah.
I love you. Can everybody see that? Right here. My pregnant goddess. Yeah, right there. See?
We also have parenthood. This is a lot of parents can relate, so each tattoo was chosen specifically for certain situations. So it's listen, bring in laughter, slow down, balance, choose love now, just breathe, connect. So This is Love My Body.
Yeah, I love that image.
Yeah, Danielle Orner.
Yeah,
She's amazing.
Show that image a little bit better. Can everybody see that? There we go.
Yeah, she's an awesome yogi. And so, you know, I honor my body. I love and appreciate. So this is kind of a empowering, positive body image pack.
Yeah.
Hey,
she doesn't have one on her leg though.
She needs one.
Yeah,
we can get her on there. Yogis, huh?
Yeah, Sanskrit.
So we got some kind of yoga type, Sanskrit and Tibetan, Om Mani Padme Hum, and others. So yeah,
but just look at some of these.
And those are greeting cards with a tattoo in them, so that people, if they have. Also, maybe worth mentioning, and we can. So we have a Survivor Thriver. We have 2 packs. These are people that are going through some super challenging time, whether it's a physical health challenge or others. This is when you're kind of, we have a series 1, which is here. This is when you're right in it and what supportive messages you may need. And this is series 2, maybe when you're coming out of it.
Wow, I love it. The other thing that I showed that your badass manifester hat.
Yeah.
But look at this. Right down here, you've got badass manifester. I love the pink one too. Yes. The badass conscious inker.
We also have some the beanies in our apparel too. But the beanies, we have gratitude, and so these are, if you notice, I guess I'm not sure if they're written in reverse. So this is really directed at us. So when we're wearing it, and on the other side.
Oh, look at that.
So you can, depending on what you're in the mood for. And we also have apparel with the same kinds of, it's really focusing on ourselves for making shifts, right?
Yeah.
That's where it all happens.
Yeah. And, you know, just again, it's endless. How many different words do you have right now?
Like I said, probably close to 500, and we're going to be adding 100 or so more, hopefully soon.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. So, you're continuing to grow your tattoo business or conscious ink. Let me rephrase that.
Yeah,
conscious
thank you.
Because it's not really about tattoos. It's about the message.
That's right. Thank you.
Right, and I know you're doing some speaking too, and we're speaking together coming up. Yeah, with Les Brown.
Yep.
On April 24th, we the first one got canceled because of the snowpocalypse. We just got hammered. You know, we didn't get anything last year. The year before we got hammered. We got hammered again this year, and it shut everything down.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah. So now I know that as part of that evening, you're going to be with 2 other people, kind of doing a group speak or however you want to call it.
Yeah, we're going to do kind of a Q&A with 2 other locals.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be fun. So we based on Les's theme, which I think is about going after your dreams.
Yeah.
And so we're going to give our experiences.
Yeah.
Share experience. And you're going to be talking about.
And I'm going to be talking about transformation.
Cool.
Yeah. One of the things I'm going to talk about, I don't know if you know about, and I'm not going to say it too much because you have to show up for the show.
Yeah.
Is, well, assuming that you've seen this beforehand, but is the northern white-faced owl. I don't know if you know the northern white-faced owl, but it has ability to make itself look larger, but it also has ability to make itself really small and look like a branch on a tree. So it's like this transformative type of owl. It's actually called a transformer owl.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty cool. I love relationships to nature and life, and even like that tree this morning. It's just like, oh, I've seen that before, but it didn't really quite click.
Yeah.
And it seems so simple. And isn't that the way it is?
Yeah.
So much of these things is just like simple.
Yeah. Like, but you may need to see it, and I think that's also just giving ourselves a break. You may need to see it, like you said, the 100th time.
Yeah.
For it to, we may just understand it. I'm sure people can relate. It's like, oh, okay, you get it on a certain level.
Yeah.
Okay, I kind of understand the concept. But then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Now I get it. You know, you embody it, and so it's a whole different experience.
Yeah.
And you know,
that
just happens with going with the flow. I think.
Yeah. I want to ask you about something. We'll kind of segue sort of towards this, and then we'll come back again. Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
I know you did the remake of that video. Can you talk a little bit about what Charlie Chaplin did maybe and why you wanted to
this is
remake that, so to speak?
Yeah, and I'm sure for many it would be sacrilege because Charlie Chaplin in the 20s during Hitler's reign had wrote, directed, starred in, everything in the movie called The Great Dictator. So on the internet, I'm sure most of you have seen, or a lot of you have seen, there's his famous speech that super inspirational. Charlie Chaplin was way ahead of his time in this kind of thing, and making a satire on Hitler during Hitler's reign. I mean, This guy's so it really was ahead of its time, and it was just a funny thing where something struck me, just a minor thing, where there was a little bit of us against them, which you could understand, when you're dealing with someone like Hitler. So it was totally understandable. However, it just struck me as what came to me was, okay, well that makes sense for that time, and it's super ahead of its time.
Yeah.
So the thought that came to me is, man, what would Charlie Chaplin, in his character, what would he, with his wisdom now, 80 years, well, whatever it's been, 100 years later, what message would he have for us now? No. That was the idea, was, wow, ahead of his time back then, really amazing speech and thoughts. And what would he tell us? What would be the shift? Even subtle. So for some reason, this idea, so I wasn't, it was just, again, going with what's in front of me. I wasn't setting out to create a video. In fact, it was at a time I had a lot going on. The last thing I wanted to do was create some other thing. I don't know where it's going. But it's the one thing that I've committed myself, which is, and there's a tattoo of it, it's listen and follow. So, and abide, it's really, so sometimes we're not even in a place to listen. And what we've been talking about a lot today is to listen. Tune in, quiet, slow down, so you can first listen. Then another step, though, because a lot of times we'll listen, right? Well, okay, I got the message, but will we follow it?
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story. Yeah. So what's important to me is listening and then actually following without knowing. So this is the trust. This is where the trust comes in. Without knowing potentially even why or where it's going to lead, or even if it makes sense. One of the things I talk about a lot is about that life is nonlinear.
Yeah.
So we can have a whole conversation on that itself. But to finish the story, I was like, okay, well, what would my interpretation? What message would he deliver? And so that compelled me to create this new version, if you will.
And it's still online, and people can see it, because I know it's at like 400,000 views.
Yeah, and there's all across the board. Some people totally get it, and they're just like, wow, and they've shared it, and it's great. It's pretty, what do you call it? It's pretty intense.
Is it, what do you call it, edgy?
I would say perhaps beyond edgy.
Well, this is good, because that's what this show is about. Edgy.
It's in your face, but if you don't know you can Google it, and you can watch the original one. Charlie Chaplin's character is playing Hitler. So to emulate this and create a new one. So I dressed as Hitler and was trying to be as if he came back to life.
Wow.
And what message he would deliver. So it's across the board of, some people totally get, other people don't understand it because they don't understand that it's a remake of that movie. So it makes sense they wouldn't get it. Yeah. Other people are like, so you can read the comments. it's,
it's all over the board.
It's all over the board.
Yeah. So maybe it should be like a new Saturday Night Live skit.
Well, it could be.
Yeah.
So
we could go down that rabbit hole.
We could.
Yeah.
So, but that's part of the thing. I think it's probably pretty quirky. It's like, I've got a lot going. Why are you doing that? And again, I didn't even know, so I don't. We'll see. Yeah. And then just let it go.
Yeah. Cool. Well. And we'll have the link on the bottom of the homepage here, so you can always come and listen to that if you want. Again, fallingupradio.com. But I want to talk to you. We didn't touch on Blississippi yet, and I want to talk a little bit about that, and then maybe we can kind of wrap up.
Sure.
And maybe you might have like 3 ideas that a listener could use today about maybe recognizing their words and how to do that. But let's talk a little bit about this Blississippi.
Sure, and we'll just do it in a nutshell. So Blississippi kind of houses, I was creating a lot during this time period, a lot of creativity. So there's a number of websites, mostly, again, just tools, different ways. You'll see humeangels.com, and it's a little fun. I don't know if you did that. Yeah. So there's I needed a place to house everything.
Yeah.
But they all support this what we've been talking about. And Blississippi is really, you can read an article on that, and that's about what we talked about at the beginning of this, which is what's important is getting in your natural state of being.
Yeah.
And letting that, focus on that, and everything else will fall into place, as opposed to trying to get to the nitpicking and stuff.
So is it kind of like this Blississippi, is it kind of like Frank's World 360 degrees?
Pretty much.
Yeah, so you can just go on there and click on different ideas and different pages. And
Yeah.
Get
lost in there.
Yeah. So again, coming back to this idea of, what is it that could really empower a listener? Maybe 3 simple ideas. Maybe we've talked about it already, but maybe it's something new.
I'll give you one.
Okay.
So, friends that know me, it's like and it's the skill I learned with just getting things down. I like just to have, maybe it's my simple-mindedness, but I like just to have like one thing.
Yeah.
Back to that, Blississippi concept with Einstein's thing. It's like, let me just get into my natural state of being, and then let everything fall from there. Instead of having, for me, 20 things to remember and doing all this stuff. For me, it's like, what am I? And then it's interesting because that kind of thinking of trying, I got to do this, and this. What state are you in? So that's important. That's an aspect of mine that's really important. So noticing even how you're feeling with whatever you might be, whatever tools you use, and let that guide you. Like, wow, I feel like this is more stressful than the actual stress.
Right.
So one thing that I've been landing on, and it's similar to the quote you had in the beginning, but it's about what I come back to myself with everything that is around me. So, and I say this, in any situation, what part of my true self is being called forth in this particular moment? What part of my true self is being called forward here? That may sound a little bit odd, but here's why. I believe our reality reflects the state that we're holding. So what is the solution is to be in alignment with who we really are, not with our personas, as I mentioned earlier when I was off track, old beliefs that no longer serve us. When we're in our essence, this is where the magic happens, right? Synchronicities happen. We're in joy, we feel good, we're healthier, everything happens from this place.
Yeah.
So what is off? Again, like we start focusing, it's like, well, Herbert did this, and that, or gosh, I just never going to be able to get into abundance, and that's the problem. No, so we're out of alignment somewhere.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So that's why I use that for myself is where am I out of alignment? What part? So every situation in my experience it's so gracious, right?
Yeah.
Because it lovingly is directing us. Hey, try it now. Okay, you don't want to listen. That's fine. Kaboom.
Yeah.
Now. So the universe is like so patient with us. Yeah, maybe.
Sometimes I wonder.
Well, by not getting, it's like you don't want to listen to it, and also it's allowing us to make the decision. So if we focus on ourselves instead of saying, well, there's something wrong with, and that's the message also, by the way, with the great dictator speech. If we all can come into our essence, I mean, come on, you know what it's like. It's like being in love 24/7. In our essence, that anything is possible for real.
Yep.
So that's what it's about. If we can each focus on that, come on, what there would be no issue at all.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like that seed. You talk about anything possible. You wouldn't think that seed on that tree today along the river could grow. you don't think that we could send a probe to land on Mars. I mean, it's pretty remarkable stuff.
Yes.
And we think so much is impossible, and it's really not.
No.
So much is possible.
Well, yes. And so imagine, because we're still, I mean, how many of us are in our essence in what percentage of time?
Yeah.
And these amazing things are happening. You
Yeah.
would imagine if we were all in our essence
Yeah.
all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
things that we cannot imagine. Solutions will magically appear this way. It's trust me, if you look back at history, so what happens is that science is a reflection of the consciousness we're holding, not the other way around.
Yeah.
So hey, we've seen it how many times. It's like, oh, now that's possible. Now that's possible. It's because we're at a different, back to Einstein, now we're at a different state. And different possibilities match different states of being. Yeah. So, I mean, anything can happen.
Do you have a tattoo that says "I am possible"? You know, the "I'm possible" thing.
That's a good one. I don't have that specifically, but I do have "Remember Who You Really Are."
Okay, because you know that the whole word
it's
impossible.
Great. I know. I've written an article on it. I'm sure a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
No, it's great. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll add it to our list.
I want 10%
okay.
royalty. Yeah, penny for everyone. Not just kidding. So, anyway, it's been really great talking to you. And one of the things that I think that we've all learned today, at least I know that I've learned, but in listening to what you're saying is, and what you just focused down on just a moment ago too, is that we really have the ability to create what we want. And by using the words that support that is really important. I mean, just like Dr. Amato talks about the water and the change in water by what we say and what we do. Yeah. But even like this little tattoo that Frank put on my arm, "Be present," is you kind of finished off with that idea of just being present, being aware, you know, without trying to get overwhelmed with everything. It's just being present, do what's in front of you, and just, you know, live a good life, you know. And
well, I love what you just said, just doing what's in front of you. Like that's enough. Yeah. You know, and that's where it's all happening, right? In this moment. Yeah. So
yeah.
I echo that.
Yeah. So again, all your links are going to be on your page or on fallingupradio.com. But for the listeners, where's the best place? Is it consciousinc.com, INK?
Good. Yeah, CONSCIOUSINK.com. That has also has a bit on Dr. Emoto's work.
Oh, it does?
Yeah. There's a little video. I'm sure most people probably have seen something of Dr. Emoto. It's amazing. So you can learn about it there. Then there's links there as well. You can go to our Facebook page, our Instagram page. There's probably other links. There's probably a link to the Great Dictator speech there, Blississippi, some of the other sites. So you can go to blississippi.com. Or consciousinc.com.
Okay. And again, you can find that all on this page right here at Falling Up Radio. And remember to, I'm going to try not to block you. There you go. Falling down, getting up. It's purposely written pretty small because we don't need to know too much. You know, when we fall, it's just like get back up. Sounds simpler than it is. Be present. Live a good life, and, you know, maybe try out some of what Frank says, and, you know, definitely check out blississippi.com or in consciousinc.com and see what works for you. And, you know, maybe one day you can get one of these badass manifester hats, because they're pretty cool. So with that said, if you enjoyed this episode today, please pass it on to your friends. Please go to our Facebook page as well, fallingupsecrets.com, and mention that you saw this episode and that you enjoyed it. And by all means, check out what Frank's doing too. So
I'll give you one last
thing. Yeah,
well,
pop in.
I was super impressed, as we've known each other on and off, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Michael does a great job of really taking, researching, taking this very seriously, I don't know if it's the right word, but putting in the time and energy to make these really effective. He honors the guests that are on there, takes the time, adding photos. I mean, you really do because I've done a number of podcasts, I'm sure like a lot of people have nowadays.
Yeah.
But you really do, you go the extra step to honor your guest and learn about them and bring up some noteworthy things. So thank you for taking that extra time.
Absolutely. And I appreciate your comment. And,
yeah.
You know, it's important to me. And one of the reasons that I'm doing Falling Up Radio is really giving people, you know, ideas and inspirations to really live a better life, you know, because we've all struggled at times. And one of the things that I found, the more that my life has gotten better and more that my life has changed from where I came from 30, 40 years ago, is that I realize again how simple it really is. And that if we come back to that simplicity, again, as you mentioned, Frank, about being present, and life gets so much easier and so much better.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that the struggles go away, but the way that we respond and reflect on those struggles
That's right.
shifts.
That's right.
Yeah.
Nicely said.
So anyway, thank you for being here today. Again, share this episode, and we will talk to you soon.